The email from my cousin Derek hit my inbox on a dreary Tuesday morning, the kind of Chicago gray that makes you question why you live here. Family dinner, Saturday 6 p.m. at our Gold Coast condo. Bring your famous mac and cheese, Jake. Investors will be there. Huge opportunity for time sink. I stared at the screen, my coffee cold on the cluttered desk of my Evanston studio apartment. Derek and his wife, Vanessa, ran a tech startup, TimeSync, an app for organizing family schedules. It was their golden ticket, or so they said, and it had already bought them a condo with a Lake Michigan view. Me? I was a freelance coder, piecing together a living from gig work, debugging apps for startups that paid in IOUs half the time. But Derek's mom, Aunt Carol, had been like a second mother to me after my parents' divorce, so skipping wasn't an option. I texted my sister, Mia, in Milwaukee. You going to Derek's dinner? Yup, she replied. You bringing the mac and cheese? Guess so, I typed, already dreading the 3-hour drive. Mia and I were the scrappy cousins, always a step behind Derek and Vanessa's polished world. Mia, a single mom, worked as a nurse and barely had time to breathe, let alone schmooze with investors. Her daughter, Zoe, 16 and artsy, was probably only coming for the food. Saturday arrived, and I spent the morning perfecting my mac and cheese. 3 cheeses, a touch of cayenne, baked to a golden crust. It was Mom's recipe, the one thing I could bring to the table that didn't make me feel like the odd man out. Mia picked me up in her rattling Subaru, Zoe in the back seat, earbuds in, sketching on her phone. This better be worth it, Mia said, merging onto I-94. Derek's gonna talk about his app all night, isn't he? Probably, I said, adjusting the Pyrex dish on my lap. Zoe, you excited? She pulled out an earbud. Free food. Whatever. The Gold Coast condo was a stunner. Hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a kitchen bigger than my entire apartment. Derek greeted us at the door, his smile all teeth and charm, his button-down crisp. Jake, Mia, Zoe, you made it. He hugged us, but his eyes flicked to the hallway, like he was waiting for someone more important. Vanessa appeared, her blonde hair in a sleek bun, her dress screaming designer. So glad you're here, she said. But her smile was tight, like she was checking us off a list. The condo was buzzing. Aunt Carol was arranging a cheese platter with surgical precision. Her husband, Uncle Ray, nursing a beer and muttering about the bears. A few cousins and an uncle from Indiana milled about, but the real action was the strangers, men in tailored suits, women in sharp blazers, all with the polished vibe of big-money investors. Derek introduced them as key stakeholders in TimeSync, his voice dripping with pride. I nodded, feeling like a fish out of water in my jeans and flannel. Jake, still coding? Derek asked, handing me a glass of wine that probably cost more than my groceries. Yeah, I said, keeping it vague. Freelance stuff. Cool. He was already scanning the room. We'll catch up later, okay? Gotta mingle. Mia shot me a look. He's in full CEO mode, she whispered. Watch your back. Dinner was set for 6:30, but as I helped set the table, Vanessa pulled me aside. Her voice was low, urgent. Jake, we're tight on space tonight. The investors are a big deal. Would you mind sitting this one out? You can eat in the kitchen with Zoe. I froze. The stack of napkins in my hand suddenly heavy. You're kicking me out of dinner? Not kicking you out, she said, her smile strained. Just prioritizing. It's for the business. You get it, right? I glanced at Mia, who was arranging silverware, oblivious. Zoe was in the corner, texting. I could make a scene, but what would that solve? Fine, I said, my voice flat. Kitchen it is. Vanessa's relief was palpable. Thanks, Jake. You're a lifesaver. I grabbed my mac and cheese and headed to the kitchen, Zoe trailing behind. This is so lame, she muttered, slumping into a chair at the granite island. Why do we even come to these things? Family, I said, trying to keep it light. But inside, I was seething. Kicked out to impress some suits. I'd driven 3 hours, spent half a day on that mac and cheese, and now I was relegated to the kids' table. This was a new low, even for Derek and Vanessa. The kitchen was a world, apart from the dining room's sparkle. While the main table gleamed with crystal glasses and silverware, Zoe and I sat at the island with paper plates and plastic forks, my mac and cheese looking out of place next to a stack of Solo cups. Through the open doorway, I could hear Derek's voice, loud and polished, pitching time sync. Revolutionary platform, seamless integration, redefining family productivity. It was all buzzwords, and I'd heard it before. I'd seen their code last year when Derek begged me to fix a glitch. Took me 2 hours to untangle what their team couldn't in a week. I didn't charge him. Family, right? Zoe poked at her food, her sketch pad open beside her. Mom says Derek's app is just a glorified calendar. I snorted, scooping mac and cheese onto my plate. She's not wrong. It's got some clever features, but nothing earth-shattering. Their back-end's a mess, though. I cleaned it up. Last spring. Her eyes lit up. You saw their code? Like, the actual app? Yeah. Derek was desperate. Their lead dev missed a memory leak that was crashing the beta. I fixed it. No big deal. I shrugged, but Zoe was leaning in, curious. That's kinda cool, she said. You're like a hacker superhero. I laughed, but it stung. Superhero? More like the guy eating on paper plates while his cousin played big shot. The dining room buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses. Vanessa's voice carried, overly bright, like she was auditioning for a TED Talk. The investors seemed to be eating it up, their murmurs warm with interest. Aunt Carol poked her head in, her face apologetic. You two okay? I told Vanessa it's rude to stick you in here, but she's got her mind set. We're fine, I said, forcing a smile. More mac and cheese for us. She sighed, patting my shoulder. You're a good sport, Jake. Always. Have been. As she left, Zoe leaned in, her voice low. You should totally crash their dinner. Just walk in, grab a seat, and eat your mac and cheese right in front of those suits. I grinned, picturing it. Tempting. But I'm not here to start a war. Too bad, she said, sketching a cartoon of a guy in flannel storming a fancy dinner. Would have been epic. My phone buzzed, a notification from a coding forum I followed. Someone had posted about time sync, calling it promising but buggy as hell. I smirked. No kidding. I was about to show Zoe when Vanessa appeared, her face tense. Jake, we need you. I raised an eyebrow. Need me? Thought I was kitchen staff tonight? She flushed, but her voice was urgent. The lead investor, Arjun Patel, saw your name in our beta tester credits. He wants to meet you. Now. I leaned back, crossing my arms. Now? During dinner? Yes, now, she snapped, then softened. Jake, this could make or break us. Please. Zoe gave me a look that screamed, don't do it. But I was curious. Why did this investor care about me, the freelance nobody? I stood, brushing crumbs off my jeans. Fine, but I'm bringing my mac and cheese. Vanessa didn't argue. I followed her to the dining room, where the air was thick with business talk. Derek was mid-pitch, a tablet propped up with charts showing user growth projections. The investors, 6 of them, looked serious, especially a man in a tailored suit with sharp, dark eyes. Arjun Patel, I assumed. Mia caught my eye, her brow furrowed in confusion. I shrugged, setting my Pyrex dish on the table like a challenge. Jake, Derek said, his smile too wide, like he was covering something. Didn't expect you here. Apparently I'm in demand. I said dryly, meeting his gaze. Patel stood, extending a hand. Jake Morgan, Arjun Patel, CEO of Horizon Ventures. I hear you're the wizard who saved TimeSync's beta demo last spring. I shook his hand, thrown. I fixed a few bugs. No big deal. No big deal? Patel laughed, his voice warm, but calculating. Your patch notes were poetry. Most coders would have taken a week to do what you did in hours. I shifted, uncomfortable with the spotlight. Mia grinned, nudging me under the table. Zoe, hovering by the doorway, gave me a thumbs up. Derek's smile was still plastered on, but his eyes were tight. Something was up, and I was starting to think this dinner was about more than just investors. The dining room felt like a stage, and I was the understudy thrust into the lead role. Patel gestured for me to sit, and I took a chair next to Mia, who whispered, "What the hell's going on?" "No clue," I muttered, my pulse racing. The table was a sea of curious faces. Investors, cousins, Aunt Carol beaming like I'd just won a spelling bee. Derek and Vanessa watched me like hawks, their smiles frozen. Uncle Ray sipped his beer, oblivious, while the other investors leaned in, their interest palpable. "Jake," Patel said, swirling his wine. "Tell me about your work. Freelance coding, yes?" "Yeah," I said, cautious. "Mostly app development, debugging, some UI design. Whatever keeps the lights on." Patel's eyes gleamed. "He's underselling himself," he told the table. "I read the TimeSync beta patch notes. Your code was elegant, clean, efficient. You fixed a memory leak that could have tanked their demo. That's not just skill. That's instinct." I shrugged, heat creeping up my neck. "Just doing my job." Derek jumped in, his voice smooth. "Jake's always been a problem solver. That's why we brought him on board." I shot him a look. "Brought me on board?" I'd fixed that glitch for free at 2 a.m. because Derek was panicking. But I didn't call him out. Not yet. Patel was still talking, asking about my tools, my process, my thoughts on scalable architecture. I answered as best I could, keeping it technical but clear. The other investors nodded, impressed, and I felt a flicker of pride. Maybe I wasn't just the scrappy cousin after all. Vanessa tried to steer the conversation back to TimeSync's features, but Patel kept circling back to me. "Jake, have you considered joining a startup full-time? Talent like yours shouldn't be stuck freelancing." I laughed, nervous. "Freelancing suits me. Flexible hours, no office politics." "Flexibility comes at a cost," Patel said, his tone serious. "Ever think about leading a team?" I blinked. Leading a team? I was barely keeping my own life together. Late rent payments, a fridge full of takeout containers, a car that groaned every time I started it. Before I could answer, Derek cut in. "Jake's happy where he is. Right, Jake?" His tone was light, but there was an edge, like he was warning me. I met his gaze. "Sure, for now." The dinner moved on. Roast beef, mashed potatoes, green, beans. But the dynamic had shifted. The investors were still focused on TimeSync, but Patel kept tossing me questions like he was testing me. Mia nudged me, her grin saying, "You're killing it." Zoe, who'd snuck in for pie, mouthed, "Badass," from the doorway. Even Aunt Carol was glowing, whispering to Uncle Ray about our Jake. As dessert was served, real plates, I noted, not the paper ones Zoe and I got in the kitchen, Patel pulled me aside. "Jake, I'm serious. Horizon's launching a new project, AI-driven productivity tools. We need someone like you, not just coding, but leading. Think about it." Handed me his business card, the kind with embossed lettering and a weight that screamed money. I stared at it, my mind spinning. Derek was watching us, his jaw tight. Vanessa was whispering to Aunt Carol, who looked torn between pride and worry. I pocketed the card, feeling like I'd stumbled into a chess game where I didn't know the rules. Back at the table, the conversation turned to TimeSync's growth projections, but my head was elsewhere. Patel's offer was a curveball. I'd spent years dodging commitment, keeping my life small and manageable. But the way he looked at me, like I was someone who mattered, it stirred something I hadn't felt in a long time. Ambition, maybe. Or just the need to prove I wasn't the guy who got kicked out of family dinner. After dinner, the investors lingered, sipping coffee and talking market trends. I slipped back to the kitchen, where Zoe was sketching a caricature of Derek in a bow, superhero cape labeled CEO Man. "You're famous now," she teased, adding dollar signs to the cape. "Hardly," I said, grabbing a beer from the fridge. "Just a fluke." Mia joined us, her eyes wide. "Jake, that guy wants to hire you. Like, big time hire you." I cracked open the beer, taking a long sip. "It's just talk. Guys like Patel throw out offers to sound important." She shook her head. "No way." He was practically begging. "You should take it." I didn't answer. Freelancing was my comfort zone. Lonely, sure, but safe. A big job meant big risks, and I'd seen what ambition did to Derek and Vanessa. Their perfect condo, their perfect marriage. It was all a facade, and I wasn't sure I wanted to trade my freedom for that kind of pressure. But Patel's card was burning a hole in my pocket, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this was a door I might not get to open again. Aunt Carol found me by the sink, her face soft but worried. "Jake, I'm so proud of you, but be careful. Derek's under a lot of stress with this app." "Stress?" I asked, drying a glass. "They've got investors eating out of their hands. What's the problem?" She sighed, glancing toward the living room. "It's not that simple. TimeSync's burning through cash. They need this deal to go through, or they're in trouble. Derek won't admit it, but I can tell." I frowned. Trouble? The condo, the fancy dinner, the designer clothes, it all screamed success. But Aunt Carol's face told a different story. Before I could press her, Vanessa appeared, her smile gone. "Jake, can we talk?" I followed her to a quiet corner by the balcony, the city lights glittering through the glass. "You made quite an impression," she said, her voice clipped. "But don't get any ideas." "Ideas?" I asked, confused. "Patel's offer. You're not seriously considering it, are you? We need you to stay focused on TimeSync. You're part of the team." I laughed, incredulous. "Team? You kicked me out of dinner, Vanessa. I'm not on your payroll." Her eyes narrowed. "You fixed our code. That makes you part of this. Don't screw us over." Anger flared in my chest. "Screw you over? I did you a favor, for free. And this is how you thank me? Banishing me to the kitchen and acting like I owe you?" She softened, but only slightly. "Look, Jake, we're family. We're just asking you to stick with us. Patel's offer is a distraction." I didn't trust myself to respond. I walked away, joining Mia and Zoe by the windows. "What was that about?" Mia asked, her nurse's instincts picking up on my mood. "Vanessa thinks I'm gonna jump ship," I said, keeping my voice low, like I owe them something for letting me eat their leftovers. Zoe smirked, waving her sketch pad. "You don't owe them squat. You're the one Patel wants." I glanced at Derek, still schmoozing with the investors. His laugh was too loud, his gestures too big. Vanessa was back at his side, playing the perfect hostess. But Aunt Carol's words echoed. "They're in trouble." I wanted to be mad, and I was. But part of me felt a pang of guilt. Derek was family, and family stuck together. Didn't they? The night wound down, and the investors started leaving. Patel shook my hand again, his grip firm. "Call me, Jake. I mean it." I nodded, my throat tight. As Mia, Zoe, and I grabbed our coats, Derek pulled me aside. Jake, I'm sorry about the dinner thing. It was a bad call. Yeah, I said, meeting his eyes. It was. He looked away, and for a moment, I saw the cousin I grew up with, the one who'd shared his comic books and snuck me beers at family barbecues. But that guy was buried under the CEO Act, and I wasn't sure I could trust him anymore. The investors were gone by 10 p.m., and the condo felt like a deflated balloon. Derek and Vanessa were in cleanup mode, but the tension was thicker than the leftover gravy. Mia, Zoe, and I helped clear dishes, but I could feel Derek's eyes on me. Finally, he pulled me into his office, a sleek room with a glass desk and a view of the skyline. Jake, what did Patel say to you? I crossed my arms. He offered me a job, leading a project at Horizon, AI stuff. Derek's face paled, his CEO mask slipping. You're not taking it, are you? Why do you care? I shot back. You didn't even want me at dinner. He winced, running a hand through his hair. That was Vanessa's call. I didn't know she'd ask you to sit out. I'm sorry, man, I didn't buy it. Sorry doesn't cut it, Derek. You've been treating me like a second-class cousin all night. What's your deal? He sank into his chair, looking older than his 35 years. It's not like that. We're in deep, Jake. The company's bleeding. Money. If we don't land this investment, we're done. I thought keeping the table small would look more professional. I stared at him, my anger mixing with shock. You're broke? Not broke, he said quickly. Just stretched thin. The app's good, but we've had setbacks, buggy updates, missed deadlines. Your fix last year kept us afloat, but we need more. I felt a mix of fury and pity. Why didn't you tell me? I could have helped. Instead, you sidelined me like I'm some nobody. He looked away, ashamed. I didn't want the family to know. Especially Mom. Mia, who'd been eavesdropping from the doorway, stepped in. Derek, you should have told us. We're not just here for Jake's mac and cheese. Zoe, perched on the couch, piped up. Yeah, Uncle Derek, you're kind of a jerk for kicking Jake out. Derek laughed, but it was hollow. Fair point, Zoe. Vanessa joined us, her guard down for once. We didn't want to worry anyone, she said, her voice soft. But we're out of moves. The investors are skittish, and if we don't deliver a flawless demo, they're out. I thought about Patel's card in my pocket. I could walk away, take his offer, and leave Derek to clean up his own mess. But Mia's hand on my arm, Zoe's hopeful eyes, Aunt Carol's worried face, they all held me back. I'll help, I said finally. But no more secrets, and no more paper plates. Derek's shoulders sagged with relief. Deal. We sat down, the 5 of us, and Derek spilled everything. The missed payments, the buggy updates, the investors ready to bolt. Vanessa admitted they'd maxed out credit cards to keep up appearances. The condo, the dinner, all of it was a front. Aunt Carol joined us, tears in her eyes. Why didn't you tell me? She asked Derek. I didn't want to disappoint. You, he said, his voice breaking. Uncle Ray, who'd been quiet all night, spoke up. We're family. We don't give up on each other. I looked around the room. Derek, beaten down but hopeful. Vanessa, vulnerable for once. Mia, ready to fight. Zoe, sketching furiously. Aunt Carol and Uncle Ray, the glue holding us together. This was messy, but it was us. And maybe, just maybe, we could pull it off. Sunday morning we gathered at the dining table. Real plates this time, thank God. Derek and Vanessa spread out their financials, and it was grim. TimeSync was months behind on vendor payments, and the investors were one bad demo away from pulling out. But Patel's interest in me was a lifeline. He thinks you're the key to stabilizing the app, Derek said, If you're in, he might sign. Sunday morning, we gathered at the dining table. Real plates this time, thank God. Derek and Vanessa spread out their financials, and it was grim. TimeSync was months behind on vendor payments, and the investors were one bad demo away from pulling out. But Patel's interest in me was a lifeline. He thinks you're the key to stabilizing the app, Derek said. If you're in, he might sign. I leaned back, thinking. I'm not joining your company, Derek. I'll consult, fix the code, streamline the back end. You pay me a fair rate, and I'll make sure Patel gets his demo. Vanessa hesitated, but Derek nodded. Done. I dove into the code base, my laptop set up on the dining table. Zoe hovered over my shoulder, asking questions about Python and APIs. She was sharp, picking up concepts faster than most of my clients. You should teach a class, she said, sketching a flowchart I'd drawn on a napkin. Maybe I'll teach you, I said, grinning. Mia and Aunt Carol took over logistics, calling vendors to negotiate extensions. Uncle Ray offered to tap his retirement savings if it came to that, his gruff voice steady. For the first time, it felt like we were a team, not just Derek and Vanessa's show. By noon, I'd patched the major bugs, a memory leak, a clunky sync function, and optimized. The back end, Zoe helped test, her artist's eye catching UI glitches I'd missed. Mia brewed endless coffee, and Aunt Carol kept us fed with leftovers. Vanessa, usually so composed, was a mess of nerves, double-checking every detail. Derek paced, muttering about burn rates and equity. Patel arrived at 3 p.m., alone, his sharp eyes taking in the change dynamic. Jake, he said, shaking my hand, you've been busy. You could say that, I replied, launching the app on a tablet. It ran like a dream. No crashes, no lag. The UI smooth as butter. Patel nodded, his smile growing. You fixed this in a day? He asked. With help, I said, nodding at Zoe, who grinned like she'd just aced a test. Patel turned to Derek. I'm in. 5 million, contingent on Jake leading the tech side. Derek's jaw dropped. Vanessa's eyes widened. I held up a hand. Consulting only. I'm not signing my life away. Patel laughed, clapping me on the shoulder. Fair enough. But you're the boss on this one, Jake. I trust you. The words hit me like a lightning bolt. Boss. Me. The guy who'd been eating on paper plates in the kitchen. Derek clapped me on the back, and Vanessa hugged me, tears streaming down her face. Mia and Zoe cheered, and Aunt Carol started crying, pulling me into a hug. Uncle Ray just nodded, a rare smile breaking through. It wasn't just about the money. It was about trust, about family stepping up when it mattered. We spent the rest of the day hammering out details. Patel's team sent over contracts, and I negotiated a consulting fee that made Derek wince, but Patel nod approvingly. Zoe sketched a mock-up for a new TimeSync feature, and Vanessa actually listened, promising to pitch it to the team. Mia and Aunt Carol started planning a real family dinner. No investors, no paper plates. As the sun set over Lake Michigan, I stood on the balcony, Patel's card in my hand. I wasn't just the scrappy cousin anymore. I was someone who could lead, who could save the day, and that felt pretty damn good. Monday morning, I drove back to Evanston, the city skyline fading in my rearview mirror. Mia and Zoe had left for Milwaukee, but not before Zoe made me promise to teach her coding. You're cooler than Uncle A. Derek, she said, her grin infectious. Mia hugged me tight, whispering, Proud of you, little bro. Don't let Derek pull that crap again. I laughed, texting back later. No chance. Back in my apartment, I opened my laptop, the TimeSync, codebase still up. I'd agreed to a 6-month consulting gig, enough to stabilize the app without tying me down. Derek and Vanessa promised to be transparent, and I believed them, mostly. The dinner fiasco had shown me what family could be. Messy, flawed, but there when it counted. Derek's apology, Vanessa's gratitude, Zoe's admiration, Aunt Carol's, tears. It all added up to something I hadn't felt in years. Belonging. I started tweaking the code, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. TimeSync wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Mine, Derek's, Vanessa's, the family's. And maybe it could be something great. Patel's offer still loomed. A door to a bigger world. Leading a team, building something from the ground up. It scared me, but it also lit a fire I hadn't felt in years. I thought about Patel calling me boss. It wasn't about power or ego. It was about responsibility. I'd spent years dodging that, hiding behind freelance gigs and low expectations. But this weekend changed me. I wasn't just coding for a paycheck anymore. I was coding for family, for a future. My phone buzzed. A text from Zoe. A photo of her latest sketch. Me in flannel, holding a laptop like a superhero shield captioned Code Boss. I laughed, saving it. The road ahead wasn't clear. Consulting for TimeSync, maybe? Taking Patel up on a bigger offer, teaching Zoe to code. But for the first time, I wasn't scared. I was ready. As I saved my work, I glanced at the Pyrex dish on my counter, still crusted with mac and cheese. It was a reminder of where I'd started, sidelined, underestimated, eating on paper plates. But it was also a reminder of where I was going. I wasn't just Jake, the freelance coder. I was Jake, the guy who could turn a family dinner fiasco into a win. And that was enough for now. If you enjoyed this story, please consider supporting our channel. Your support helps us keep sharing stories like this one. Visit our website to learn how you can contribute. Thank you for being part of our community.